Right, hello everyone. So, this is part of my series of meeting experts and having a chat about some sort of insight from the work they do. And today I'm joined by Vicky Midwood, who is an expert in helping high achievers eliminate alcohol addiction and disordered eating. So, how did you start out in this line of work, Vicky?
Well, for me, it was not an obvious thing to do straight away. I've always been involved in the world of health and fitness, particularly for my own sort of self-worth. I wanted to keep fit and I had issues with food, but I never thought I would end up helping other people get over those problems. I discovered that my journey didn't have to be as difficult as it actually was. And I took it upon myself to make the connection between the physical and the mental side of my addiction and my problems with food, because I was very much based on the bulimic side of things, even though I did drop to a dangerously low weight. And throughout my kind of, shall we say, learning, I discovered that there were some major pieces of the puzzle missing that were currently being offered. And that's why I decided to specialize, so that people could get results and get freedom from compulsive behaviors around food and alcohol much more easily and much more quickly than perhaps they believe. And it's not just all about therapy, and it's not just about talking, it's about practical things too.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So, yeah, I always think it's wonderful when some personal experience of your own life can end up being what you end up doing day to day to help others. So yeah, part of the story that I've started to share is my history with anorexia, and it's something that I still kind of live with now. I'm definitely not free of that, and I just wondered if we could talk about any kind of signs. I mean, I'm a parent. I volunteer and help coach young athletes, and what are the signs? What can we look out for in family, friends, and loved ones? People who we might, things that we could pick up when you think, oh, they might be having an issue. They might need some help.
Yeah, I think the thing is that although we can kind of categorize disordered eating and issues with body image as being all slightly different, there are some definite common signs right across the board. So whether we're talking about anorexia or binge eating or bulimia, or even people who just have issues with body image, I think the signs to look out for are, first of all, in teenagers and even young girls, actually grabbing parts of their body and being critical. And that's something that we're seeing in very young children who will grab their tummy and go, this is fat. Yeah. Or maybe, if you're a parent or a grandparent and you've kind of done that and grabbed chubby cheeks, that they start talking about their face and how chubby their cheeks are. So noticing what they're doing, first of all. And then little kind of subtle things like, is there a change in their behavior? Are they starting to be a little bit more secretive, a little bit more wanting to spend time in their room on their own, a little bit less likely to want to go out with their friends? Because a lot of the time it's about self-confidence, and not just in how they look, but how they're feeling around peers. So those are two obvious things. And then the third one is making excuses to skip meals or to just not be around the table at dinner. Now, in this kind of environment, it's difficult, I know, because not everybody is eating at the same time, and we don't all sit down for family meals like we used to. That being said, there's less opportunity for children to make an excuse, because they can't say, well, I'm going to so and so's house for tea, because they probably can't because of COVID. But,
Yeah,
but ordinarily, it would be like, no, I'm going to eat at so and so's, and then when they get to so and so, they've already eaten at home.
yeah,
And
yeah.
those are the kind of things that you have to watch out for. And it's difficult for parents because it's very subtle and it doesn't just suddenly happen. It's
Mhm.
something that will happen over time. And this is where, I think the more parents can talk and communicate with their children, not criticize and not tell them that they shouldn't be saying it or shouldn't be feeling like that, but just exploring, what is it that they're thinking and feeling, so it can start a conversation.
Yeah. Do you think the pandemic is causing bigger problems? I think it must be. And it's harder, I guess it's harder to see them because people are behind closed doors and there's a lot of stress and anxiety about. But what do you think's been going on this year for people, and is there anything that we can do to help each other?
Yeah, I think that we're going to kind of see that when things calm down and children are going back and going back to school kind of on regular basis instead of going and then being sent home for 2 weeks, there's going to definitely be issues that have cropped up. The problem, of course, is that it's a secret thing. We're not going to openly go, oh, throughout lockdown, I've lost, this amount of weight by starving myself or throwing up. You're not going to advertise it.
No, exactly.
So I think to watch out, for parents and teachers to watch out when children come back, have they lost a lot of weight? Are they a little bit strange around lunch times and wanting to be seen to be eating in front of peers and sitting and eating together? I think the main thing that we can take from lockdown is that some children will have thrived without the stress of being at school and will have enjoyed the whole being able to learn at their own pace and online.
Mm,
And if children are striving and they're not under stress, then there's probably not going to be issues with food. But if children have felt that they're not coping very well with being at home, if the home environment is a tricky one,
mm,
if they have found that the learning style online is just not suiting them and they don't know how to ask questions because they feel that they're going to be ridiculed or told that they're stupid, then those are more likely to be the children who will kind of have those issues come out sideways. And the easiest thing for them to feel that they can control when everything else feels out of control is going to be their food. And I honestly think that we'll see a massive shift in whether people actually go to their GP or whether they seek help from charities with issues going on. But I know that there's going to be a lot of parents who will be concerned and not know where to go or who
mm.
to ask about how to get help. And unfortunately, it's potluck with how good your GP is and what services are available to you in your area. And I think the other thing to mention for parents is we've got to be really careful. We know as being a parent is a juggle anyway, but
Yeah.
we've got to be so careful about not making an issue of something that isn't actually an issue, because that in itself can then create a problem that really wasn't there. But because you planted a seed
Mm,
of the thought process that maybe food is a way of controlling and of feeling better, even if that's not what the child was doing, then suddenly you can kind of create a problem. So the conversations that parents have is so important. But do I think there's going to be a massive rise in the number of younger children, particularly with issues around food and body image? I do, purely because they've been exposed to much more stuff on the internet kind of with permission than
yeah.
ever before. So they will, and I'm sorry, but even if you're a parent with parental controls, kids are savvy. They're going to get around stuff, and
Yeah.
they're going to have gone on to Snapchat and TikTok, and they're going to have seen things that perhaps you wouldn't ideally like them to, and they're going to make their own minds up. And this is where I keep coming back to it, but having conversations and talking to your kids, not going, you shouldn't be watching this, but talking to them about what do they think, what do they feel when they see it, and actually talk emotional conversations. But crucially, they're not telling the kids that their emotions are wrong, because that's unfortunately what a lot of parents do unwittingly. They
Mm,
think they're being helpful, but the child can interpret that as being a criticism, and that then affects their self-worth, and it also affects whether they're going to still be open and want to converse. Because if they're going to be told that this is wrong, they're unlikely to want to have more conversations like that.
yeah. Yeah. That's really good advice. Thank you, Vicky. So do you so would the first port of call for someone who was concerned be their GP, and to see if they have a good experience or not so, or yeah, what would you advise? Maybe we can share some, when we share this video, we can share some contacts. So.
I would like to say that yes, that would be the first obvious thing to do.
Mm.
Um, but I'm going to kind of caveat that with most parents know the type of GP that they go and see. And so if you know your GP and you think that they're unlikely to be sympathetic and helpful with this kind of issue, then perhaps that's not the best first port of call. And I would reach out to an organization, perhaps a charity organization, perhaps go onto their forums or their websites, and just have a look at information that may be helpful to you at that point. So, for example, I offer a checklist of signs that people can look at as to whether they do actually have an eating disorder or whether it could potentially be something else.
Yeah.
And I think rather than jumping to a conclusion and thinking that there's something wrong, do a little bit of due diligence and do a little bit of homework first. And don't be scared to pick up the phone rather than feeling you're left on your own, because a lot of the charities have helplines, and they're which are manned all of the time. And they're usually manned by volunteers like me. So I help with a charity called Seed, which is very much set up to help parents as well as the sufferers themselves. And that helpline is manned all of the time by people who have been in your shoes. So it's people who know what they're talking about. And I think sometimes that's the better option than going straight to your GP, who, depending on their experience, may or may not have come across the issues themselves.
That's true. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Vicky. It's really, really interesting. And yes, hopefully some helpful tips there for a lot of parents and teachers and carers as well. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I just want to say, if anybody is worried about their child or about themselves, because this is not purely a young person's thing, it can very much go into the older generation, and people of my age in their 50s, 60s and above are still struggling sometimes because they've never got help. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer questions or just have a chat, just to help you to feel a little bit better about what's going on. There is always going to be help available. It's just reaching out to the right people. I think that's the crucial thing.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.